and I'm gonna send it to you. When we're done, I'm gonna send you a link to it. So if you want the story to have for your own, I'll give you an email list at the end. And you know what? Why don't we does anybody have a pen? Why don't we just pass that around now, real quick? And because I forget things really easily. You have a, oh, thank you so much. And if you want a copy of the story, and maybe the whole asana class, we'll see how much battery power and storage I have left, but I'll send it to you. And you can put your name on the list. So I'm Kelly Cam, and I'm so happy to be here, really honored. I used to have a studio not too far from here, about an hour and a half, called Happy Buddha Yoga in Goshen, New York. I had that for about 10 years. And I let it go, and now I just do this. And I always want to give a big shout out to the studio owners, because, yeah, it is, how many studio owners in here? Wow. It is the hardest job, and nobody understands, right? Except the studio owners, nobody gets it. You know, think, oh, you're so lucky, you just get to hang out and do yoga and like, you know, travel around. Like, no, you work your butt off 24/7, 7 days a week with no rest. You answer the phone all day long. It's like you're up at midnight on Christmas Eve doing taxes. So, you know, I get it. So this is really fun. Now I get to share what I love at festivals and teacher trainings all over. And what I love is mythology. I teach mostly storytelling. I teach a lot of how to teach teachers to bring mythology into their classes and how to make it meaningful, and why should we care about it? You know, why do we as modern day yogis in 2016, why do we care about a story about Krishna? We're so lucky we have this Krishna looking over us today. But what does it mean to our lives? And it really, you know, unless you can really relate these things to your life, it's kind of pointless. Even asana, it's like, well, but why? Why are we doing this? You know, what does it really mean? Or like when you study the Yoga Sutras, why, right? Why do we do this? If you can't really say why it's relevant to your life, then wait, you know, sit with it, get a teacher, talk about it. And so that's what I've been doing with these stories. I've been, you know, staying close to my teachers and working with them for years now, for about 5 years now. This has been my path, and letting them open up to me and give me lessons. And so, like, I don't know about you, but anybody find life challenging? Does anybody feel like they're not in a state of transition right now? Good, that's what I thought. Okay, we're all on the same page. So that's what this story is about. It's really about, you know, kind of when the ground gets pulled out from underneath you and the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, like you think everything's going just fine, and then the universe is like, hold on, I'm gonna shake things up a little bit, right? That happens all the time. So I'll tell you a story about that today, and you know, that's really why I do this, because I just like always looking for some help, and how do I manage, how do I thrive, how do I live this life really skillfully, and the stories give me the tools that I need to live life more skillfully. Somebody's been there. The gods, the goddesses, the demons, they're all going through all this stuff, all the sages and the saints, and they're having relationship problems, and they're having family troubles, and they're falling from grace, and they're coming back to grace, and it's all the stuff that we go through all the time. And so my teacher says, don't think about these stories as something that happened way back when, you know, something that happened to Shiva a long time ago. There's stories that are happening right now, every day, in your own heart. When we talk about the battles against the gods and the demons, or the battles that we're facing, it's the way we fight ourselves, the way we struggle in our daily lives. And so when you hear the story today, try to imagine yourself as every single part of the story. So not just the main characters, not just the heroes of the story, but everything, even the grass and the moon and the trees and the flowers. So where can you find yourself is the question. And what's so beautiful about these stories is, you know, you could, when somebody talks to you about their day or their problems, right? It gets so boring really fast. But these stories, you can hear them and tell them again and again and again, and they never get boring because they're magic. They really are, because they just keep unfolding. It's like a prism. And wherever you're looking at it from, you're gonna get something different reflected back to you. So I could tell this one story, which I'll tell today, to all of you, and you might all get something different from it, which is so cool. You'll get what you need. Or I can tell the same story to you 50 times, And 50 times you'll hear something different. Like I walk around my house all day telling myself stories. And once in a while, I just stop dead in my tracks. Like, whoa, I never thought about that. And a story that I've known for 10 years, all of a sudden becomes new again to me. So that's one reason why I love them too. They just keep opening and blossoming again and again, and reflecting you back to yourself is what they do. They reflect you back to you. So I hope you can find a little something, like a little nugget today that might help you through something that you're going through, or something that you will go through, or to make sense of something that happened. It's a story about Shiva today, and Shiva is the god of destruction, which sounds really awful, right? But he's also the god of grace. He's the most benevolent one, which is such an odd juxtaposition, that this guy who takes things away, burns things to ash when he opens his third eye, who's chopping off everybody's head. That's why I like him. He's always chopping somebody's head off and then going, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. And then fixing it and making it better, putting it back together, and it's even more wonderful than it was before. Like Ganesh, right? He's Ganesh's father. Do you know the story of Ganesh? Shiva, his own father, chops his head off, and then has to find a new head and puts an elephant head back on him. And then Ganesh, for the rest of his life, says, you know, my father gave me this. And it's a symbol of transformation. It's us as the yogi having to chop off our own head. It's the wound that turns us into yogis, the thing that changed our life and put us on this path, right? So you start to shift your perspective to see that these terrible things that we once thought were terrible things, like, oh, why is this happening to me, are the door to your awakening and your transformation. They're the greatest gift you could ever get, but they come in these funny, scary packages sometimes. So Shiva is the god who takes things away and teaches us the grace. How to be graceful in moments of transition, how to fall with some grace. Don't you wish that was taught in schools? Like math, science, how to end a relationship well. I think we could use that way more than like trigonometry or something. But luckily we have Shiva to help teach us that. So we'll get right into it. Sit up nice and tall. We'll start with some Oms to really all get on the same page together. And when you chant Om, you can turn any space into a holy space. And although the space is already feeling very holy. So let your spine rise tall and mighty from your hips, like the peak of a great mountain, a peak in the Himalayas. And let your breath start to wash in and ripple through you. And drop your mind right into your heart. And with so much tenderness, absolute, utter, tender, loving kindness towards yourself, just notice what's there. Whatever you've been going through, whatever you've been through that's brought you to this point. All these things that connect us to each other, right? When we experience the rug being pulled out from under us, or things being shaken up, it's an opportunity to connect with everyone who's ever felt that way. That's why these stories are so powerful too. They connect us to each other. Take a big breath in and out. And then one more deep inhale for Om. Open your mouth, just let it tumble out as you arrive here in this space. And so we begin our story. It's the story of Shiva's Ananda Tandava, the dance of bliss. And maybe you're familiar with images of Shiva. He's got the wild dreadlocks that flow out in all directions, and his arms are gracefully arched, and his one leg is up. Have you seen that one? It's the one in the Ring of Fire, right? So often you'll see it in a sculpture form. So it's the story of when he danced, this dance of bliss. And it actually starts with these sages, and these sages lived in this pine forest. And the sages got really, really good at what they were doing. So they were doing all these rituals and doing all these ceremonies, and like having the fire ceremony where you put ABC into the fire and you say your prayers and you get XYZ out of the fire, and your crops grow really well and your village is thriving, no problem. And everything is going so well for them. Like my teacher Douglas says, it's kind of like, imagine the CEO of a big company who's now driving the Range Rover, and he's kind of like got it made. You know, he's got the house in Colorado and the whole deal. And so these sages, you know, at first when they started doing their practices, they did them just with this pureness of intention, but then they started to get stuff, right? And that's a kind of slippery slope with yoga, isn't it? Like, you start to get powerful, and it's really, you have to be very aware of how you use that power. So they started to get really powerful through their practices, and they completely forgot why they were doing them in the first place. They're just thinking now like, oh yes, now we get stuff. We do this and all of our crops grow. We do this and everything is thriving. And so they're going along just happy as can be. Meanwhile, Shiva's kind of like watching this from the outside like, I think I need to pull that rug out from underneath them a little bit, right? They're getting a little too comfortable. They've forgotten about passion. Passion is so important in your practice. And so he goes and gets his good buddy Vishnu. In almost every story, those two are hand in hand, they're best pals. So Shiva says to Vishnu, come on, let's go mess with these guys. So they go, and they take form, they reincarnate as these incredibly gorgeous beggars. Like, not just gorgeous, like gorgeous that you cannot take your eyes away from them, like the young virile Brad Pitt with no clothes on, begging. Like, that was Shiva. And Vishnu becomes Mohini. Mohini's name literally means irresistible illusion. We all have some of those. A few, yes, for sure. Those are those things where you think like you have this big lofty goal, and then you see that shiny thing, and you just, later with that, I'm gonna go over here and have a few glasses of wine or go shopping or whatever that thing is. You know? So that's Mohini. And so Mohini and her beggar pal, they go right and they march right into this village where all the sages are. And what do you think happens? Of course, everybody's like, heads whip around, and all the women are looking at this Shiva character, and he's like so beautiful beyond belief, and they stop everything that they're doing, and then they just leave the children, they leave the dishes, they leave everything, and what can we do for you? Come to my house, don't let me feed you. And everything goes into disarray. And then the same thing happens when they see Mohini. Everybody's looking at Mohini, the men are looking at Mohini, probably some of the women are looking at Mohini, they're all looking at Mohini like, oh my God, they just can't take their eyes off this irresistible delusion. And the whole place is thrown into chaos. No more sacrificial fires, no more ceremonies, no more rituals. They've stopped everything. Pretty soon though, one of these sages figures out, like, hey, these guys have really come in here to throw off our whole situation. This is bad, we gotta get rid of them. They're mad, pissed. And so they get some stuff, they're gonna throw things, right? You get mad, you wanna throw stuff. And so they start throwing things at this Shiva dressed as the beggar. And first they throw a snake. They throw this huge serpent at him. And he says, oh, serpent, I wear your serpent. And he drapes it around his neck and he wears it. And then they throw a tiger at him. He goes, oh, tiger, I wear your tiger. Wraps a tiger around his waist and he wears the tiger. And they keep on throwing things at him, throwing things. They throw fire at him. Fire, no problem, I catch your fire. I hold it in my hand, it's the fire of wisdom now. Finally, they throw a demon at him, this little dwarf-like, super scary demon that represents all of our ignorance. It's our forgetfulness. It's when we forget our passion. It's when we forget our true nature. It's when we forget our goodness. And they throw this at him, thinking, of course, you know, that always gets you, doesn't it? But it doesn't get him. And he doesn't kill it, doesn't spear it with his trident, nothing like that. He takes the demon, puts it down, and he's